Ava Mitchell had always been different. While other children her age chased video games or sports trophies, Ava's eyes were glued to the skis. From the moment she first saw a fighter jet streaking through the clouds during a local air show, she was captivated. It wasn't just the speed or the sound, it was the precision, the grace, and the raw power of a machine responding seamlessly to a pilot's command. From that day on, she knew exactly what she wanted. She wanted to fly, to feel the controls beneath her fingers, and to command the sky in a way that very few could. But growing up in a small Midwestern town came with its limitations. The streets were lined with familiar houses, the same convenience stores, and neighbors who whispered about ambition as if it were a sin. Ava's obsession with aviation was met with a mixture of curiosity and ridicule. Her classmates would tease her relentlessly whenever she brought up planes or military aviation. "Girls don't become fighter pilots," they said with a smirk. "You're going to sit at a desk somewhere, not fly jets." At first, their words stung, but Ava had learned early that passion could drown out doubt. She didn't argue. She simply studied harder, learning the names of jets, the physics of flight, and the stories of the women who had broken barriers before her. Ava's room was her sanctuary. Every wall was adorned with posters of F-15s, F-22 Raptors, and historic aircraft like the P-51 Mustang. She had shelves full of aviation manuals, books about aerodynamics, and biographies of famous pilots, both male and female. On her desk lay a small, worn journal where she meticulously logged every flight she observed, every maneuver she studied, and every dream she imagined. To Ava, flying was not a hobby. It was a calling, a world she felt born to inhabit. School was another challenge altogether. Teachers noticed her fascination but dismissed it, assuming it was a fleeting obsession. They encouraged her to focus on practical career paths, like nursing or office work, suggesting that dreams of fighter jets were unrealistic. But Ava paid no heed. She excelled in science and mathematics, often tutoring her peers in physics, and spent her free time building model planes and running flight simulations on her computer. Each successful landing in a simulator brought a thrill she couldn't find anywhere else, and she vowed to turn that virtual skill into reality. The ridicule from her peers, however, was constant. Whenever she mentioned her dream in the cafeteria, a chorus of laughter followed. "She thinks she's going to fly a fighter jet," someone would shout. "Good luck with that." The taunts were relentless, but Ava learned to carry them with quiet dignity. Instead of reacting, she let her preparation speak for her. Every hour she spent studying flight mechanics, practicing simulations, and training herself physically was a step closer to proving them wrong. She found solace in the small victories. A perfect landing in the simulator, a high score in a physics exam, or recognition from a supportive teacher who believed in her. Ava's parents were cautiously supportive but worried. They admired her determination yet feared the challenges she would face in a male-dominated field. "It's going to be hard, Ava," her mother said one evening, after watching her daughter read late into the night about jet engines. "People won't take you seriously, and some doors might be closed to you." Ava nodded, understanding their concern, but her resolve didn't waver. "I know it won't be easy," she replied calmly, "but that's exactly why I have to do it. If it were easy, anyone could do it." Outside of school, Ava sought opportunities to get closer to her dream. She joined the local Civil Air Patrol, attending weekend flight training sessions whenever she could. She soaked up every lesson, from navigation to emergency procedures, asking endless questions of instructors who were initially skeptical of her presence. She practiced takeoffs, landings, and aerial maneuvers in small aircraft, learning to anticipate how a plane responded to control inputs. Every flight, no matter how small, strengthened her confidence and her understanding of aerodynamics. Despite her growing skill, the doubts from others never fully disappeared. Some neighbors openly questioned her choices. "You should think about something more practical," they said. "Why risk your life chasing something that isn't realistic?" Their words were meant to discourage her, but Ava turned them into fuel for her ambition. Each doubt became a challenge she was determined to overcome, each laugh a reminder that she would not let anyone dictate her destiny. By the time Ava reached her final year of high school, her reputation as the plane-obsessed girl was well established. Some students still laughed at her, but others began to notice her unwavering focus. Teachers who had once doubted her began to see her potential, nominating her for advanced science and mathematics competitions. Her determination inspired a few peers to respect her, even if they couldn't fully understand her passion. Ava knew that flying a fighter jet wasn't just about technical skill. It was about resilience, mental toughness, and the ability to remain calm under pressure, qualities she had been hunting for years. One crisp autumn morning, as Ava walked past the school cafeteria where her classmates whispered and laughed, she noticed a small group of younger students watching her with wide eyes. They had heard the stories, the tales of a girl who dreamed bigger than anyone else in town. Ava smiled faintly, realizing that her journey had already begun to inspire others, even before she had taken to the skis officially. She didn't seek admiration, she only sought to master her craft. Yet the respect in those young faces was a quiet reminder that perseverance leaves a mark, even in small towns filled with skeptics. That evening, alone in her room, Ava opened her worn journal. She wrote about her dreams in meticulous detail, her first solo flight, the roar of an F-22 Raptor's engines, the thrill of maneuvering through the clouds, and the eventual moment when she would finally silence the laughter that had followed her for so long. Each word she wrote was a promise to herself. No matter what obstacles lay ahead, she would reach the sky. Ava closed the journal, her eyes lingering on a model F-22 perched on her shelf. She whispered to herself, "They'll see. One day they'll see." In that quiet room, under the soft glow of her desk lamp, the girl who had been laughed at, doubted, and underestimated was already beginning her journey toward greatness. The path ahead would be grueling, full of challenges she couldn't yet imagine, but Ava felt ready. For the first time, the future didn't feel intimidating. It felt like a flight waiting to take off. And somewhere, high above the small Midwestern town, the sky seemed to beckon her, whispering promises of speed, mastery, and triumph. Ava Mitchell was ready to answer that call. Ava Mitchell felt the same mix of excitement and fear as she opened the letter from the Air Force Academy. She had poured her heart into the application, detailing every flight simulation she had mastered, every Civil Air Patrol session she had attended, every late night she had spent studying aerodynamics and aircraft engineering. She imagined herself finally stepping onto the academy grounds, joining the ranks of the elite, and beginning the journey she had dreamed about since childhood. But the words on the page were not what she wanted. The letter politely informed her that her application had been rejected. She read it again, as if the second time might magically change the outcome, but it didn't. Her chest tightened. Her fingers trembled slightly, and for the first time in years, Ava felt a wave of doubt wash over her. She had prepared, studied, and sacrificed, yet it wasn't enough. Around her, the small Midwestern town whispered in its usual way. Friends, neighbors, and classmates, some supportive, others skeptical, commented on the news. "Maybe it just wasn't meant to be," one neighbor said, shaking his head. "Not everyone is cut out for the Air Force." Her classmates, who had laughed at her dreams in the past, now smirked smugly as if the rejection proved them right. The laughter stung, and Ava felt a pang of frustration, but she didn't let it consume her. She had faced doubt her entire life and survived. Instead of wallowing in disappointment, Ava reflected on the reasons given in the letter. She discovered that her physical assessment scores had fallen slightly below the standard for her age and gender. While minor in the grand scheme of things, it was enough to prevent her from being accepted. Most people would have seen it as a roadblock, a signal to give up. But Ava saw it as a challenge, one more obstacle to overcome rather than a verdict of failure. She spent the next several months in absolute discipline. Every morning she ran laps until her lungs burned and her legs felt like lead. She pushed herself to lift heavier weights, increasing both strength and endurance. At night, she revisited her studies, diving deeper into flight mechanics, aircraft systems, and tactical maneuvers. She practiced emergency procedures and memorized every protocol that might be expected of her at the academy. Each failure, each slight setback became fuel for her resolve. Ava's room, once a shrine of airplanes and models, transformed into a training center, calculators, manuals, and diagrams strewn across her desk, each a testament to her relentless pursuit. Her parents noticed the change in their daughter. Her mother, who had once worried about Ava's safety and the feasibility of her dreams, now watched in awe. "You're unstoppable when you focus like this," she said one evening, placing a comforting hand on Ava's shoulder. Her father nodded in silent approval, a rare smile crossing his face. They couldn't shield her from the challenges ahead, but they could admire her courage and discipline. Ava, however, didn't seek their validation. Her drive came from within. Months later, the Air Force Academy reopened applications for the next class. Ava applied again, this time armed with improved physical scores, extra certifications from her Civil Air Patrol experience, and a renewed determination that burned hotter than ever. Every essay she wrote was polished, every recommendation meticulously prepared. When she submitted the application, it felt like a personal declaration. She would not be denied twice. The waiting period was excruciating. Each day, Ava balanced schoolwork, part-time work, and continuous flight practice. She checked her email obsessively, imagining both rejection and acceptance. Her classmates whispered about her again, some curious, others doubtful. "Do you really think she'll make it this time?" one student asked. Ava offered no reply. Words had never been her weapon, action was. She continued training, practicing maneuvers on flight simulators, and reading about tactical exercises employed by elite pilots. Every day, she honed her mental and physical skills. Finally, the day arrived. Ava tore open the envelope and found the letter she had been waiting for. Her heart raced as her eyes scanned the page. This time, the words were different. She had been accepted into the Air Force Academy. Relief, joy, and a surge of pride flooded through her. Months of hard work, persistence, and unwavering focus had paid off. For the first time, Ava felt the thrill of knowing that she was stepping onto the path she had dreamed of for years. Arriving at the academy, however, proved to be another challenge. Walking through the gates, Ava immediately sensed the skepticism in the air. Male cadets, seasoned and confident, whispered as she passed. Some openly doubted her abilities, others questioned her presence. "She's not going to last," one cadet muttered under his breath. Ava ignored them, knowing that proving herself was a matter of skill and determination, not arguments. The early days at the academy were grueling. Cadets endured intense physical training, long study sessions, and strict discipline. Ava struggled to keep pace at first, but she adapted quickly. Her focus, honed through years of preparation, allowed her to excel where others faltered. She paid attention to every detail, memorized protocols, and anticipated challenges before they arose. Slowly, the whispers of doubt began to shift. Some cadets were curious, others cautious. The academy was a crucible, and Ava was determined to emerge stronger. One particularly grueling exercise involved complex flight simulations designed to test cadets' reaction time, decision-making, and tactical knowledge. Ava approached the simulator with calm focus, her hands steady on the controls. While some of her peers panicked, making mistakes under pressure, she executed every maneuver flawlessly. The instructors watched in surprise, noting her precision and composure. Ava realized then that skill could silence doubt more effectively than words ever could. Outside of the simulations, Ava formed quiet bonds with a few cadets who respected her dedication. They shared tips, training insights, and late-night study sessions. Though small in number, these allies provided encouragement and a sense of belonging. Ava didn't need friends to validate her. She thrived on challenge itself. Still, their support reminded her that even in an environment filled with skepticism, respect could be earned through hard work. By the end of her first semester, Ava had already begun reshaping perceptions. The cadets who had initially doubted her now watched her with a mixture of respect and quiet astonishment. She had arrived as the girl everyone whispered about, laughed at, or dismissed, and she was quickly becoming one of the most competent cadets in her cohort. As the sun set over the academy grounds, Ava stood alone for a moment, watching the golden light reflect off the flight hangars. The path ahead would be challenging, filled with rigorous training, competition, and countless obstacles. Yet she felt ready. The rejection, the whispers, the doubt, all of it had strengthened her resolve. She had learned that failure was not the end, but a step toward mastery, and Ava Mitchell was only just beginning her journey. She whispered to herself, as she often did in quiet moments, "This is only the beginning. They'll see what I can do." Life at the Air Force Academy was nothing like Ava Mitchell had imagined. The first few weeks were grueling. Dawn came with relentless physical training, and nights were filled with hours of lectures, tactical simulations, and protocol drills. Every cadet was tested physically, mentally, and emotionally. Mistakes were punished, hesitation was scrutinized, and perfection was expected. Ava had prepared for this moment for years. She had trained her body, memorized flight procedures, and studied every aspect of aircraft mechanics. But reality was harsher than her simulations. The academy demanded split-second decisions, the kind that could determine life or death in real combat scenarios. She struggled initially, fumbling controls during complex flight exercises and miscalculating maneuvers that would have been routine in her simulation sessions at home. Her peers noticed, and the whispers started immediately. "She doesn't belong here," one cadet muttered during formation. "I told you she'd fail," another whispered behind her back. The ridicule was relentless. Ava found herself the subject of stifled laughter during debriefs, where mistakes were analyzed in front of everyone. Even instructors, while professional, sometimes seemed skeptical of her ability to handle advanced aircraft under pressure. One day, during a particularly critical simulation exercise, Ava faced a complex scenario. She had to manage multiple system failures while performing an evasive maneuver. Her hands trembled slightly as she adjusted controls, and for a moment, a computer error compounded her difficulties. The simulation alarms blared, lights flashed red, and the software registered a critical failure. Her classmates couldn't contain their amusement. Some leaned back in their seats, whispering snide comments. "Looks like the girl pilot's finally cracking," one said. Others laughed openly, and Ava could hear the chuckles as the simulation ended with a failed maneuver. Her cheeks burned, not just from embarrassment, but from the sting of seeing her efforts mocked. That evening, after the day's exercises concluded, Ava retreated to an empty hangar. The faint smell of jet fuel lingered in the air, and the metallic shine of a nearby F-16 reflected in her eyes. She walked slowly to the aircraft, resting her hand on its cool fuselage. Alone in that quiet space, Ava allowed herself a moment of vulnerability. Tears threatened to fall, but she held them back. The humiliation of the day weighed heavily on her. Every laugh, every whisper of doubt, felt like a mountain pressing down on her shoulders. Yet as she gazed at the jet, something inside her stirred, a quiet, burning resolve. This was exactly why she had worked so hard. This was why she had trained in secret, why she had poured hours into her studies, and why she had endured ridicule since childhood. The doubt of others would not define her. If anything, it would fuel her determination. She whispered to herself, "I will not be laughed at forever. I will prove them wrong." Ava began to double her efforts. Mornings started earlier with additional physical training. Evenings were dedicated to hours of flight simulation, running emergency scenarios repeatedly until every response became second nature. She meticulously analyzed her previous failures, breaking each one down to understand exactly what went wrong and how to correct it. Mistakes were no longer setbacks. They were lessons, building blocks for mastery. Her instructors began to notice the change. Ava's precision improved incrementally, but the shift was subtle at first. She no longer panicked under pressure. She anticipated system failures and corrected maneuvers with quiet efficiency. During simulator drills, she stayed calm while others floundered, her hands steady on the controls. Observers noted her persistence, her resilience, and her capacity to learn from every mistake. Yet the ridicule from peers did not immediately stop. There were still moments when someone would laugh at a minor slip or whisper doubts in the cafeteria. Ava ignored them, finding solace in the small victories. A maneuver executed flawlessly, a problem solved faster than expected, or praise from an instructor who recognized her improvement. These moments became her motivation, reminders that progress was real, even if others refused to acknowledge it. One day, during an advanced formation exercise, Ava faced a critical test. She was tasked with leading a simulated squadron through a complex aerial maneuver while managing multiple system alerts. Her peers were tense, some skeptical of her ability to lead. Ava's heart raced, but her mind was focused. Every maneuver she had practiced for months, every lesson she had learned from failure, guided her actions. The simulation was flawless. Ava executed the maneuver with precision, leading her squadron successfully through the exercise. Instructors and peers alike watched in stunned silence. The very cadets who had laughed at her earlier now stared in disbelief. No one cheered, no one laughed. The silence itself was acknowledgement enough. Ava had demonstrated skill, composure, and leadership in a situation that would have challenged even the most seasoned cadet. That night, Ava returned to her quarters exhausted but exhilarated. She realized something important. Humiliation, while painful, was temporary. Skill, discipline, and determination had lasting power. Every laugh that had once stung now fueled her drive to improve further. She understood that mastery wasn't immediate. It was earned, brick by brick, through persistence and resilience. Over the next several months, Ava's reputation began to shift. The cadets who had mocked her started to watch more closely, some offering tentative assistance or quiet advice during simulations. The instructors, impressed with her rapid improvement and mental toughness, began assigning her more challenging exercises, trusting her ability to perform under pressure. Ava still faced skepticism, but it was no longer debilitating. It was a challenge she was prepared to meet. Her journey during this period was more than just technical skill building. It was a lesson in human behavior, patience, and confidence. Ava learned to read the room, to anticipate doubt and criticism, and to use it as motivation rather than distraction. She cultivated a quiet self-assurance that no amount of laughter could shake. The girl who had once been ridiculed now moved through the academy with purpose, her focus unwavering, her determination visible in every precise movement and every calm decision she made. One day, as she stepped out onto the flight line to observe a formation exercise, Ava paused. The sun glinted off the metallic bodies of parked jets, and the roar of engines filled the air. For a brief moment, she reflected on how far she had come. From the small Midwestern town girl laughed at for dreaming of fighter jets, to a cadet respected for skill and perseverance, the journey had been hard, humiliating, and relentless, but it was shaping her into a pilot capable of commanding the skies. As Ava climbed into the cockpit for yet another simulation, she felt a calm confidence settle over her. The whispers, the laughter, and the doubt were no longer obstacles. They were mere background noise to her focus. She ran through pre-flight checks with meticulous attention, ready to tackle the challenge ahead. She was no longer the girl who faltered under pressure. She was Ava Mitchell, cadet, pilot in training, and future F-22 pilot. Every humiliation had been a lesson, every laugh a reminder of her purpose. The skis awaited, and Ava was ready to claim them, one maneuver at a time. The months following her initial struggles were transformative for Ava Mitchell. The cadet who had once stumbled under pressure and endured relentless ridicule had begun to evolve into a pilot with a quiet but undeniable strength. She had learned that skill was the true antidote to doubt, and that perseverance could silence even the harshest critics. Her time at the Air Force Academy had become a crucible, forging not just technical skill but resilience, determination, and a disciplined mind. Every morning, Ava arrived before dawn, jogging across the academy grounds as the first light touched the hangars. She pushed her body harder than before, lifting heavier weights, running longer distances, and stretching to improve flexibility and endurance. But the physical regimen was only part of her transformation. She devoted hours to studying flight manuals, emergency procedures, and tactical maneuvers, committing every detail to memory until each became second nature. Even when exhaustion threatened to overwhelm her, she pressed on, fueled by the knowledge that every effort brought her closer to her dream. Her improvement did not go unnoticed. One of the senior instructors, Major Reynolds, had been skeptical of her abilities at first. But over time, he began to observe a remarkable pattern. Ava did not just recover from mistakes, she learned from them, adjusted her strategies, and executed with increasing precision. During a simulated emergency landing exercise, she flawlessly navigated a scenario in which the hydraulic system failed mid-flight. Where other cadets panicked, she maintained calm, executed the proper sequence, and landed safely. Reynolds raised an eyebrow in admiration. Ava had transformed from a struggling cadet into a pilot who could handle crises with poise. Her peers began to take notice as well. The same cadets who had once mocked her hesitated to speak in derision. Some whispered questions about how she had improved so quickly, while a few offered tentative assistance during exercises. Ava accepted the guidance when useful but remained fiercely independent, understanding that mastery required personal commitment. She became known for her meticulous preparation, attention to detail, and unshakable focus under pressure. Slowly, the Academy's social hierarchy began to shift. Respect replaced derision, and Ava quietly became a force to be reckoned with. The first major test of her rising skill came during a high-stakes formation exercise. Ava was assigned as a wing leader, responsible for coordinating 3 other cadets in a complex tactical maneuver. The simulation required split-second decision-making, precise control, and perfect communication. The moment the exercise began, Ava's preparation became evident. She anticipated every variable, adjusted for simulated wind turbulence, and guided her wing through the scenario flawlessly. By the end, instructors and cadets alike were astonished. Ava had executed a maneuver that even experienced cadets found challenging, and she had done it with calm precision. For Ava, this moment was a quiet triumph. She didn't celebrate loudly, she didn't seek validation. Instead, she returned to her quarters that evening, reviewing every detail of the exercise in her journal. She analyzed what went well, what could be improved, and how she might approach even more complex maneuvers in the future. While others sought applause, Ava sought mastery. And in that pursuit, she found not only skill but confidence, a sense of authority she had never known before. Her dedication extended beyond flight simulations. Ava took every opportunity to understand the broader scope of aviation. She studied aerial combat tactics, stealth technology, and advanced avionics systems. She attended extra seminars, asked questions of visiting Air Force pilots, and stayed after class to observe instructors dissect mission scenarios. Her mind became a repository of tactical knowledge, a combination of theoretical understanding and practical skill that set her apart from many of her peers. The Academy began assigning her more challenging tasks. She was entrusted with leading simulations that required rapid problem-solving, creative thinking, and precise execution. Each assignment tested her in ways that would have overwhelmed the cadet she had been just months prior. But Ava thrived under pressure, turning each challenge into an opportunity to showcase her growing competence. Her confidence was no longer a fragile shield but a solid foundation upon which she built her reputation. One particularly rigorous exercise involved a simulated dogfight against multiple enemy aircraft. Ava led a team of cadets through a series of evasive maneuvers while simultaneously maintaining formation, communicating strategies, and responding to sudden system alerts. The simulation demanded split-second calculations and flawless execution. By the end, Ava's team had outperformed expectations, completing the exercise without errors. Instructors who had once questioned her abilities now nodded in quiet approval. Her peers watched in awe, realizing that the cadet they had once doubted could not only survive but excel in the most demanding scenarios. Ava's rise was not without internal struggle. She carried the memories of ridicule, the sting of doubt, and the fear of failure. Each time she faced a new challenge, A quiet voice reminded her of past humiliation. But Ava had learned to harness those emotions, transforming them into focus and determination. Every setback became a lesson, every doubt a fuel for improvement. The girl who had once been laughed at was becoming unshakable, not because she was perfect, but because she refused to surrender to fear or ridicule. The transformation extended beyond technical skill. Ava's leadership qualities began to emerge, subtle but undeniable. She offered guidance to struggling cadets, modeled discipline and preparation, and inspired others to strive for excellence. Her calm demeanor in stressful situations became a quiet example for others to follow. The academy, once a place of doubt and humiliation for her, was now a proving ground where her determination and skill commanded respect. By the end of the semester, Ava had earned recognition as one of the top cadets in her class. She was no longer merely surviving, she was thriving. The laughter that had once haunted her was replaced by silent acknowledgement. Cadets who had once whispered about her ability now watched her with admiration, and instructors who had doubted her capacity now relied on her as a model of precision and discipline. As Ava walked across the academy grounds one evening, the sun dipping low on the horizon, she reflected on her journey. Every early morning, every late night, every moment of self-doubt had brought her here. She had transformed humiliation into strength, laughter into motivation, and skepticism into proof of her determination. The path ahead remained challenging, filled with even greater responsibilities, advanced aircraft, and real-world missions. Yet Ava felt ready. She had learned the most important lesson. Mastery was earned through relentless effort, discipline, and belief in oneself. Ava paused near the flight hangars, the F-16s gleaming in the fading light. She imagined the future, the advanced jets she would fly, the missions she would undertake, and the moment she would finally silence every lingering doubt about her abilities. She whispered to herself, "I'm ready. They'll see soon enough." In that quiet moment, Ava Mitchell was no longer just a cadet. She was a rising force, a pilot in the making, and a girl who had turned ridicule into triumph. The announcement came on a crisp morning at the Air Force Academy. The Advanced Tactical Training Program was opening seats for cadets to train in the F-22 Raptor, one of the most advanced fighter jets in the world. For Ava Mitchell, the news was electrifying. This was the opportunity she had been working toward for years, the moment when all her preparation, discipline, and skill could finally meet the challenge she had dreamed of since childhood. The F-22 was unlike any aircraft she had encountered. Sleek, powerful, and almost otherworldly in its design, it represented the pinnacle of modern aviation technology. Ava had studied its manuals and simulators, memorized its systems, and even analyzed tactical flight patterns. But nothing could fully prepare her for the first time she would sit in its cockpit, feel its engines roar, and command the bird herself. When she arrived at the flight line, her classmates who had once doubted her were present, their expressions a mixture of curiosity, skepticism, and awe. Some whispered under their breath, speculating whether she could handle such a powerful machine. Ava ignored them. She had learned that words from others were meaningless compared to her own preparation and skill. Today, action would speak louder than any doubt. Climbing into the cockpit for the first time, Ava's heart raced. The controls were complex, filled with buttons, levers, and touchscreens that seemed to defy logic to the untrained eye. But Ava's years of study and practice allowed her to approach them with calm confidence. She ran through every pre-flight checklist meticulously, each step precise, each motion deliberate. Sweat prickled at her temples, but her hands remained steady, guided by focus rather than fear. The instructors watched closely, their expressions unreadable. Some of the cadets who had laughed at her early failures hovered nearby, eager to witness either triumph or disaster. Ava felt their gaze but did not waver. She had faced ridicule before, had stumbled, and had persevered. This was no different, only higher stakes. As the engines roared to life, the vibration coursing through the cockpit was exhilarating. The power of the F-22 was palpable, a living force beneath her fingers. Ava guided the aircraft with precision, checking systems, testing controls, and performing initial maneuvers. Even the instructors exchanged glances of surprise at her calm composure. The cadet who had once been humiliated and doubted was now in command of the Air Force's most advanced fighter jet. The first full maneuver exercise began. Ava navigated through tight turns, steep climbs, and rapid descents. The F-22 responded seamlessly to her commands, almost as if it recognized her focus and determination. Every movement was deliberate, every adjustment calculated. Cadets and instructors watched in stunned silence as she executed maneuvers that others had struggled to perform even in simulators. Ava's control of the aircraft was not just competent, it was masterful. Midway through the session, an unexpected scenario was triggered. The simulation introduced sudden system failures, navigation alerts, engine fluctuations, and stealth mode complications. Ava's training kicked in automatically. She prioritized actions, executed emergency protocols flawlessly, and maintained control under pressure. The F-22 responded as if it were an extension of her own body, following her every command with precision. By the time the simulation concluded, not a single instructor had doubted her competence, though a few male cadets were visibly shocked. How is she doing that?" whispered one cadet, unable to hide his astonishment. Ava didn't answer. She simply continued her post-flight procedures, logging data, reviewing performance, and ensuring every system was checked. Her focus never wavered, not even when others whispered or stared. She had learned that attention to detail and calm confidence were the true marks of mastery. After several hours in the cockpit, Ava finally stepped out of the F-22. Her body was tired, but her mind was exhilarated. She had proven to herself, more than anyone else, that she could handle the aircraft. The instructors debriefed the exercise, praising her precision, composure, and problem-solving skills. "Exceptional work, Cadet Mitchell," Major Reynolds said, a note of admiration in his voice. "You handled the F-22 as if you were born to fly it." For Ava, this was more than praise. It was validation of years of preparation, perseverance, and resilience. The laughter and doubt that had once followed her seemed distant now, replaced by quiet recognition. She realized that skill, discipline, and focus could overcome prejudice, ridicule, and skepticism. The girl who had been laughed at entering the academy was now respected as a pilot capable of commanding one of the most advanced jets in the world. Over the next few weeks, Ava continued her F-22 training. Each session pushed her limits further. She executed complex tactical maneuvers, rapid response scenarios, and advanced combat simulations. Every exercise tested her precision, decision-making, and leadership under pressure. Cadets who had doubted her before now observed her with respect, often seeking advice or insight from her experience. Instructors began assigning her leadership roles in simulations, trusting her judgment and skill. The transformation was not only technical but psychological. Ava felt a profound sense of control, confidence, and purpose. She had learned to harness fear, pressure, and doubt into focus and action. Where once she had stumbled under scrutiny, she now thrived under it. Each challenge became an opportunity to grow, each failure a lesson, and each success a quiet affirmation of her abilities. By the end of the F-22 program's first phase, Ava had established herself as one of the most skilled cadets in the class. She had turned the skepticism of her peers into admiration, the doubt of her instructors into respect, and her own insecurities into quiet confidence. The aircraft that had once seemed intimidating had become an extension of her skill and determination, a machine that followed her commands with precision, reflecting years of preparation and dedication. That evening, as Ava stood on the flight line, watching the sun set behind the sleek silhouette of the F-22, she allowed herself a moment of quiet reflection. Every early morning, every late night, every moment of doubt or ridicule had brought her here. The journey had been long, arduous, and sometimes humiliating, but it had forged a pilot capable of mastering the skis. She whispered softly to herself, "This is only the beginning. I'm ready for whatever comes next." Ava's journey in the F-22 was not merely about learning to fly an advanced fighter jet. It was about proving to herself, and eventually to the world, that dedication, resilience, and skill could overcome doubt, prejudice, and mockery. The aircraft was more than a machine. It was a symbol of her transformation, a testament to the power of persistence, focus, and belief in oneself. As she prepared for her next flight, Ava knew that the real challenges were still ahead. Advanced tactical exercises, real-world simulations, and leadership tests awaited her. But she also knew that she had already proven something important. She could rise above skepticism, exceed expectations, and command respect not through words, but through her actions. And somewhere in the quiet hum of the hangar, surrounded by gleaming aircraft and the lingering scent of jet fuel, Ava Mitchell stood poised on the threshold of greatness, ready to take her next step toward the sky, and toward a future in which no one would ever doubt her again. Ava Mitchell had climbed into the cockpit of the F-22 Raptor countless times now, yet every flight carried the same rush of anticipation and adrenaline. The roar of the engines, the hum of systems coming to life, and the palpable power beneath her fingertips reminded her that she was no longer the girl who had been laughed at. She was in command, and the aircraft responded to her every thought with precision. Today, the stakes were higher. The instructors had scheduled an advanced tactical exercise, a simulated multi-enemy engagement designed to push cadets to the limits of their skill, reflexes, and strategy. Several experienced cadets had already attempted it, and few had completed the scenario without critical errors. Ava knew this would be a true test of her abilities. As she climbed into the cockpit, she could feel the familiar mix of excitement and focus settling over her. She ran through her pre-flight checks methodically, each button pressed with practiced precision, each system verified twice. She could hear some cadets whispering in the background, their skepticism from earlier months still lingering, but Ava no longer paid attention to the doubt around her. Words had no power over someone who had mastered skill, discipline, and focus. The exercise began, and Ava's instincts took over. Multiple enemy aircraft appeared on her radar simultaneously, moving unpredictably, forcing her to make split-second decisions. She maneuvered with calm precision, executing high-speed turns, climbs, and dives with the kind of fluidity that only comes from deep training and experience. Every control input she made was measured, deliberate, and confident, as if the jet itself were an extension of her body. Instructors watching from the control tower exchanged glances, impressed by the sheer finesse of her movements. Cadets who had previously doubted her abilities could barely contain their astonishment. Ava was not just surviving the scenario, she was mastering it, anticipating the enemy's movements before they even appeared on her radar, and coordinating her simulated squadron with flawless timing. At one point, a sudden system failure was introduced. The F-22's navigation system glitched, and the radar temporarily went offline. Panic would have overwhelmed most cadets, but Ava remained calm. She switched to manual controls, recalculated vectors in real time, and continued the exercise seamlessly. The aircraft responded as if it were obeying her very thoughts, completing maneuvers that had caused previous cadets to fail spectacularly. The silence among her peers was palpable. They had come expecting to witness mistakes, but instead, they watched a cadet perform feats of aerial mastery that were almost unreal. Even the instructors, normally reserved in their praise, could not hide their admiration. One muttered under his breath, "She flies like she was born in that cockpit." The exercise continued, growing more complex with each passing minute. Ava's mental acuity was unmatched. She processed information faster than the systems themselves could display it. Every threat, every maneuver, and every emergency protocol was executed flawlessly. By the end of the simulation, the F-22 had performed every command with precision, and Ava's squadron emerged victorious. The applause from instructors was quiet but meaningful, a recognition of mastery that no words of ridicule could diminish. For Ava, the victory was not about proving her peers wrong. It was about personal achievement, about pushing herself to the limit, and about mastering the craft she had devoted her life to. She understood that true respect is earned not through confrontation, but through consistent skill, composure, and dedication. In that moment, Ava knew she had earned the respect of those who had once doubted her. The aftermath of the exercise brought quiet changes among her peers. Cadets who had previously mocked or ignored her began approaching with questions, seeking advice on maneuvers and tactics. Some offered tentative congratulations, acknowledging her skill in ways that words could barely express. Ava received their recognition calmly, never flaunting it, understanding that respect is most powerful when it is observed rather than demanded. Over the following weeks, Ava continued to excel in advanced exercises. She coordinated formation flights, executed evasive maneuvers, and handled simulated combat scenarios that challenged even senior cadets. Her reputation grew steadily, earning her additional responsibilities and leadership opportunities. The instructors began assigning her as the lead for critical simulations, trusting her judgment, and her peers followed her example in awe. Ava's growing mastery extended beyond technical skill. She had learned to remain unshakable under pressure, to anticipate challenges before they arose, and to remain composed in the face of unexpected obstacles. Her focus was absolute, her discipline unwavering, and her confidence steady. The girl who had once stumbled and faced ridicule had transformed into a cadet who commanded respect simply by the way she executed her duties. One evening, after a particularly grueling day of tactical simulations, Ava stepped out onto the flight line. The setting sun cast long shadows across the hangars, and the F-22s gleamed in the fading light. She paused to watch the horizon, reflecting on her journey. Every moment of doubt, every whispered insult, and every failure had shaped her into the pilot she had become. She had learned that skill and resilience speak louder than words ever could. In that quiet reflection, Ava felt a deep sense of accomplishment but also humility. She knew the sky held infinite challenges and the path to mastery was endless. The F-22 was not just a machine, it was a partner, a tool that amplified her abilities, and a symbol of the hard work, persistence, and courage that had brought her this far. As the weeks passed, Ava's confidence became nearly tangible. She flew with grace, precision, and authority, completing maneuvers that other cadets could only dream of. Her peers no longer whispered doubts. They followed her lead, recognizing her skill and discipline. Instructors relied on her judgment, and the academy began to view her as a model cadet, an example of how dedication, perseverance, and resilience could overcome skepticism and achieve excellence. Ava's transformation was not just about flight skill, it was about leadership, mental toughness, and character. She had turned ridicule into motivation, failure into opportunity, and doubt into determination. Every movement in the cockpit, every decision under pressure, and every challenge she overcame further solidified her place as a cadet worthy of respect. By the end of this training phase, Ava had become a force to be reckoned with. Her peers had stopped underestimating her, and the instructors had begun to openly admire her talent. The girl who had once been laughed at entering the academy had now earned a reputation as one of the most skilled and composed cadets in her class. She had proven, without words, that excellence is born from relentless effort and unwavering focus. As Ava prepared for the next phase of her training, she allowed herself a moment of quiet satisfaction. The sky above stretched endlessly, full of possibilities, challenges, and opportunities. She whispered to herself, "I am ready. They'll see that this is only the beginning." With that, Ava Mitchell climbed into the cockpit once more, the F-22 humming beneath her, a silent partner in her journey toward mastery, respect, and ultimate triumph. The day had come that Ava Mitchell had been training for, dreaming of, and preparing her entire life to face. The live simulation mission, designed to mimic the chaos, pressure, and unpredictability of real aerial combat. It was a culmination of everything she had learned at the Air Force Academy: the physical endurance, the mental sharpness, the leadership skills, and most importantly, her mastery of the F-22 Raptor. The mission briefing was intense. Ava and her squadron would intercept a simulated hostile aircraft attempting to penetrate defended airspace. Complicating matters, multiple variables were introduced: unpredictable enemy movements, sudden mechanical failures, and communications disruptions. Every detail of the mission was designed to test cadets under extreme stress. For most, it would be overwhelming. For Ava, it was the moment she had been waiting for. As she climbed into the cockpit of the F-22, Ava felt the familiar thrill of power and precision coursing beneath her fingertips. She ran through pre-flight checks with meticulous care, her hands steady, her mind focused. Around her, her peers whispered in anticipation. The cadets who had once mocked her, doubted her, or openly laughed at her abilities were now watching with wide eyes. The skepticism and derision that had defined her early years at the academy had vanished, replaced by curiosity, caution, and quiet admiration. The engines roared to life, and Ava lifted off the runway with confidence. The simulated scenario began immediately, with multiple enemy aircraft detected on her radar. She guided her squadron through evasive maneuvers, maintaining tight formations while calculating speed, altitude, and trajectory for optimal engagement. The F-22 responded flawlessly, executing every command with precision. Ava's years of training, her countless simulations, and her relentless preparation were finally converging in real time. Suddenly, a simulated system failure hit mid-mission. Communications were jammed, radar partially offline, and one engine indicator showed a critical alert. Most cadets would have faltered, hesitated, or panicked, but Ava's mind worked with clarity and precision. She quickly assessed the situation, prioritized actions, and implemented emergency procedures. Switching to manual navigation, she recalibrated her squadron's position and maintained control under pressure, guiding the team through the crisis with calm authority. The instructors monitored closely, impressed by her decision-making and adaptability. Cadets who had doubted her abilities were now silently observing, some with barely concealed astonishment. Ava had always known that her skills would need to prove themselves in moments like this, and now they were. She coordinated attacks, executed defensive maneuvers, and adjusted strategies mid-flight, responding instinctively to every challenge the simulation threw at her. The scenario escalated. Enemy aircraft simulated aggressive approaches, forcing Ava to calculate risk and timing with perfect accuracy. Each maneuver required split-second decisions, flawless execution, and seamless communication with her squadron. Ava's focus was absolute. She anticipated threats before they fully manifested, calculated angles of engagement, and executed precise maneuvers that minimized risk while maximizing tactical advantage. The F-22 became an extension of her body, responding to every instinct with precision and speed. Hours seemed to compress into minutes. Every second carried weight, every decision could determine mission success or failure. The tension in the cockpit was palpable, but Ava remained calm, methodical, and decisive. She guided her squadron through complex aerial tactics, engaged simulated threats, and maintained composure despite the increasing pressure. Her peers and instructors alike watched in stunned silence as she executed maneuvers that many had believed impossible under such conditions. At one point, a sudden simulated threat appeared behind her squadron, a high-speed intercept that could have caught any cadet off guard. Ava reacted instantly, signaling evasive maneuvers and adjusting formation positioning with precision. Her squadron responded flawlessly, and the threat was neutralized before it could compromise their position. The instructor's eyes widened. This was beyond exemplary performance. It was mastery. Ava had not only survived the simulation, she had dominated it, demonstrating skill, leadership, and composure at the highest level. The mission continued with increasing complexity. Electronic warfare simulations, unexpected weather variables, and rapidly changing threat patterns. Ava navigated each challenge with calm authority, making split-second decisions while coordinating her team with clarity and precision. By the end of the exercise, The F-22 had executed every command flawlessly. Her squadron had completed the mission without errors, and the entire simulation was a resounding success. When the mission concluded, a moment of silence hung over the observation deck. The instructors, cadets, and support staff were in awe. The girl who had once been laughed at in the cafeteria and ridiculed for dreaming of flying fighter jets had just completed a simulation that many senior cadets had failed. Her performance was flawless, her leadership unquestioned, and her skill undeniable. Major Reynolds approached her after the debriefing, a rare smile on his face. "Cadet Mitchell," he said, his voice firm but full of respect, "that was exceptional. You handled every scenario flawlessly. Your composure, decision-making, and mastery of the F-22 are nothing short of remarkable. You've set a standard here that others will strive to reach." Ava nodded quietly, her heart racing with pride but tempered by humility. She didn't need loud applause or exaggerated praise. The success was proof enough of her dedication, her perseverance, and her relentless pursuit of mastery. She had turned every doubt, every failure, every moment of ridicule into fuel for this achievement. Her peers, once skeptical and dismissive, now regarded her with admiration. Some approached hesitantly, offering congratulations, while others simply nodded in acknowledgement of her skill. Ava accepted their recognition without arrogance. She knew that true respect is earned through consistent performance, resilience, and excellence under pressure. She had proven that mastery is not about proving others wrong. It is about being your best self when it matters most. That night, as she sat alone in her quarters reviewing mission logs, Ava reflected on the journey that had brought her here. Every obstacle, every whispered doubt, and every laugh at her ambition had shaped her. The rejection from the academy, the early failures in simulations, and the ridicule of peers had all contributed to the pilot she had become. She realized that true strength is forged in adversity, and that perseverance can transform even the harshest criticism into motivation. In the quiet of the evening, Ava allowed herself a small smile. The journey was far from over. There would be real missions, more advanced simulations, and new challenges in the days ahead. But she had faced the ultimate test at the academy and emerged not just victorious, but exemplary. She had proven her skill, earned respect, and solidified her place among the elite cadets. From that day forward, Ava Mitchell was no longer just a cadet with a dream. She was a pilot in command, a leader capable of facing the impossible and excelling. The girl who had entered the academy amidst laughter and doubt had now risen to become a symbol of determination, skill, and unshakable focus. As she prepared for the next mission, the horizon stretched endlessly before her, full of challenges, opportunities, and limitless skis. She whispered to herself, as she always did, "This is just the beginning. I will rise higher, fly faster, and prove that no obstacle can stop me." The world above awaited, and Ava Mitchell was ready to claim it. Months had passed since Ava Mitchell had conquered the Academy's ultimate simulation. Each day had brought new challenges, more advanced training, and opportunities to refine her mastery of the F-22 Raptor. The girl who had once been ridiculed, doubted, and underestimated had transformed into a pilot whose skill, discipline, and composure were unparalleled among her peers. But for Ava, mastery was not an endpoint. It was a continuous journey. Her days were filled with rigorous flight exercises, advanced tactical simulations, and leadership training. She led her squadron with precision, earning respect not through words, but through every command she executed flawlessly. She trained relentlessly, her physical endurance and mental acuity sharper than ever. The cadets who had once laughed at her now followed her lead, silently learning from her discipline, focus, and ability to stay calm under pressure. Ava's instructors began giving her increasingly complex assignments, recognizing her potential to handle responsibilities that even senior cadets struggled with. One exercise involved coordinating multiple F-22s through a simulated stealth infiltration mission, evading enemy radar, and responding to unpredictable threats in real time. Ava executed the mission with flawless precision, guiding her squadron seamlessly, anticipating obstacles, and adjusting strategy on the fly. By the end of the simulation, every instructor was impressed, noting her remarkable ability to remain composed and decisive in the most challenging scenarios. The respect Ava had earned extended beyond the cockpit. Her peers, inspired by her resilience and dedication, began seeking her guidance. She mentored younger cadets, sharing her knowledge of flight mechanics, tactical maneuvers, and mental preparation. Ava understood that true mastery was not only about personal achievement, but about empowering others to reach their potential. She became a quiet leader, modeling excellence through her actions, discipline, and unwavering focus. Despite her achievements, Ava remained humble. She knew the path of a pilot was endless. The sky always demanded more skill, sharper reflexes, and deeper strategic understanding. She never allowed herself to rest on past victories. Every flight, every simulation, and every mission was a chance to improve, refine, and prove her abilities once more. The fear of complacency had no place in her mindset. One morning, during a particularly complex exercise, Ava faced a scenario that would test her ingenuity and leadership like never before. Enemy aircraft simulated aggressive maneuvers designed to trap her squadron in a deadly crossfire. Communication lines were disrupted, radar systems intermittently failed, and environmental conditions, simulated turbulence and low visibility, pushed the pilots to their limits. Most cadets would have panicked under such conditions, but Ava's preparation, discipline, and focus were unmatched. She analyzed the situation instantly, calculating trajectories, predicting enemy movements, and formulating a strategy that leveraged every advantage. With calm authority, she directed her squadron through evasive maneuvers, coordinated attacks, and countered simulated threats with precision. The F-22s responded perfectly to her commands, every jet executing flawless maneuvers as if guided by her instincts. Instructors watched in awe, realizing that Ava had become a pilot capable of thinking several steps ahead in the chaos of combat. When the simulation concluded successfully, the applause from instructors was restrained but meaningful. Cadets who had once doubted her, whispered about her, or laughed at her now regarded her with admiration and respect. Ava had not only completed the mission, she had dominated it, proving that skill, discipline, and mental fortitude were more powerful than doubt or ridicule. Ava's journey at the academy culminated with a formal graduation ceremony. Cadets donned their uniforms, the F-22s gleaming on the tarmac behind them, symbolizing the heights they had all aspired to reach. Ava stood among her peers, her posture confident, her demeanor calm, yet inside, she felt a quiet satisfaction. The journey from ridicule to respect, from doubt to mastery, had been long, arduous, and transformative. As she accepted her graduation honors, she reflected on the journey that had brought her here. The rejection letters, the mockery of peers, the failed simulations, and the relentless challenges of the academy had all been part of a path that forged her into a pilot of exceptional skill and unshakable resilience. Every obstacle had been an opportunity to grow, every setback a lesson, every doubt a motivation. Ava's story became a source of inspiration for other cadets. Younger pilots, especially those facing doubt or skepticism, looked to her as proof that determination, skill, and discipline could overcome any obstacle. Her mentorship and example helped cultivate a new generation of pilots, emphasizing perseverance, focus, and the power of self-belief. She had become more than a pilot. She had become a symbol of what could be achieved through relentless effort and courage. Years later, Ava Mitchell would reflect on her journey from the small Midwestern town girl who dreamed of flying fighter jets to the respected pilot commanding an F-22 in advanced missions. She remembered the laughter, the doubt, and the skepticism that had once surrounded her. But more importantly, she remembered the lessons learned. That persistence can transform failure into success, ridicule into motivation, and dreams into reality. Ava had not only mastered the aircraft but had mastered herself. She understood that leadership, excellence, and respect were earned not by words or claims, but by consistent action, unwavering focus, and the courage to rise above adversity. She had become a pilot capable of extraordinary feats, a mentor to others, and an embodiment of the values of perseverance, discipline, and resilience. The F-22, once a symbol of challenge and intimidation, had become her ally, responding to every command with precision and grace. Each flight reminded her of how far she had come and how much potential lay ahead. The skies were limitless, and so too was the journey of mastery. As Ava prepared for a new mission, she glanced at the horizon where the sun reflected off the sleek lines of the F-22. She whispered quietly, a promise to herself and a statement of resolve. This is only the beginning. The sky belongs to those who dare to master it. With a steady hand and an unwavering spirit, Ava Mitchell climbed into the cockpit once more, ready to face the next challenge, to lead, to inspire, and to soar higher than ever before. The girl who had once been laughed at entering the academy had become a pilot commanding respect, mastering the skies, and leaving a legacy that would inspire generations of aviators to come. Her story was a testament to the power of perseverance, the strength of discipline, and the triumph of courage over doubt. And as the F-22 roared into the sky, responding flawlessly to her every command, Ava Mitchell knew that she had not only claimed the aircraft but had truly claimed her destiny.